Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Horror Flick Chicks podcast. Woo, Sonia and Sandra are here with you today. And unfortunately, once again, our partner Angie could not make it. Duty calls, and we just have to push through without her today. But we miss you, Angie. Hopefully, we'll be on all three of us will be on the podcast next time all together.
Yes.
Let's get into this. So we are recapping all the episodes of the current season of Only Murders in the Building. And today's episode is episode 8, season 4. It's called Lifeboat. All right. So let's get started.
Good
Um,
episode.
yeah, it was a really good episode. Last week we saw Charles and the gang going to Long Island to visit Charles's sister and all that stuff that ensued there. And now we're back in New York. We're back in the city. Before the credits of the show today, they showed the Westies. Okay, they
Hmm.
showed the Westies being invited to Dudanov's apartment. They all got
Yes. We're
invitations.
going back a little bit.
Yeah, this is like a flashback kind of sort of. The Westies got invites to come to Dudanoff's apartment, and he says, he has them all there, and then he tells them he wants to change their lives. He's going to change their lives, right? And then it cuts and it goes to the credits, and then we get into that actual episode. When we get to
Yeah.
the episode, starts off the trio's leaving Long Island, heading back into Manhattan, and they're driving in the car. The car breaks down, so they're kind of on the side of the road trying to figure it out. And they're kind of recapping also all the clues and things that they've come up with in the last few days
Right.
about everything that's going on, everything leading up to trying to find the killer, right? So that's where we are. And while they're on the side of the road, they get a call from the actors who are playing them in the movie, and they say that they want to continue the working on this
On the investigation.
investigation, and they want to speak together, get together, and figure things out. So they decide on a place to meet, and it's on the set of the movie
Of the
that
movie.
they're shooting. So that's where they're meeting because they can't meet at the Arconia because apparently the possibility is that someone that's there is the killer. So they can't be there.
Right.
And they had the cameras all over the place before, so they could be recorded. Like, who knows? We don't know.
Right.
So they get there and they're speaking, and a lot of some of this episode was a lot of flashbacks going back
Right. We
to.
find out we find out how the Westies met Dudenoff
Yes, and
and
how they
how they
made this
all
arrangement with him and how
right.
they all got together and became friendly with each other,
Right.
right? So Dudanoff invited them all. They all or worked with him in some way, in movies, wanting to be actors, took his acting classes and things like that. I guess he chose these people. He saw something in them
Yeah.
and he chose them to be kind of his friends, so to speak, but
Yeah.
also kind of like I feel like mentees, like he can
Yeah,
speak to
sure.
them, kind of mold them into not in a stalkerish way, just mold them into something that they want to be. He wanted to help them achieve their dreams,
Right.
and he thought bringing them into his little circle would help that.
Would help them, yes.
Right. So, and in doing so, they all became friends. Vince, Rudy, Christmas Everyday Guy, Rudy, the Sauce family,
Ross family.
they all got together playing that game of Oh Hell that they would
Yeah.
starting to play in a few episodes back. That's how they started to have these games. And we also have a new we also have a new person jumping into the
A
mix.
new Westie. She's
Yes,
a new Westie.
technically, yes, she was a Westie. So
Right.
a few episodes back, if you remember on the ham radio, we heard a voice saying, "Don't stay there, don't go there. Anyone that's there dies," right?
Right.
And the Christmas Every Day guy said that it was his ex-girlfriend Helga. She used to be in the group, like she knows doing off, but she used to be in the group, and but now not anymore. She's kind of went a little bit nuts, and we
Right.
kind of excommunicated her, so to speak.
And she hasn't been brought up again.
Right. So now, as they're oh, and by the way, let me go back a little bit. Once the trio and the actors get together to start talking about everything that they've compiled so far, they decided that they have to get the Westies because now they're thinking that one of the Westies did it, right? One of
Right.
the Westies killed Dudenoff and Saz, and because they were cashing the checks.
Right.
So they have to get them together and try to confront them and
Trying
get
to,
them to spill the beans.
right.
So they decide to formulate this game of oh hell, and they want the Westies to come over to their place, to
Yeah.
Oliver's place,
Oliver's apartment.
to
Yes.
have this game, and then the actors are there, so it'd be cool to have like famous people there. So that was the way to entice them over.
They lured, yeah, they kind of lured them in there.
Yes. So that's what they did. And while they were there, they were basically interrogating them.
Right.
And in this interrogation, that's how we started to hear the backstories.
Right.
The Westies were giving the backstories of how they met Dudenoff, how they became friends, how they became
How
close,
they
both
became the
of
group
them.
that they are. Yeah.
Yes. And so we find out Rudy wanted to trying to be an actor, and he went to his acting school, and
Signed up to.
he did some kind of monologue that wowed Dudenoff, and he said, I'm gonna take you under my wing, and you really got something here, and I want to work with you, kind of thing. And he brought him to the house, and he wanted to start this whole kind of group. And Vince, the same. He was well, not the same, but he was a widow, and his wife is always and him were always into movies, and he thought he saw an ad for Dudenoff's class in the paper or something, and he thought that maybe this was a sign from his wife to get out and meet people and do something that they really like to do together. So that's when he started to go to the acting class, and he bonded with Dudenoff because I think a lot of the other students in the class were really young, and they had their own way of thinking about uh the movies that they watch, even like the older movies, and then and Dudenoff and Vince were kind of like, it's just a movie, let's just you enjoy for what it is, kind of thing, and they kind of bonded over that. So that's how they bonded, and they brought into the circle, and then they became this group that we all know now as the Westies, this little family on the west side of the Arconia, right? And as they are in Oliver's apartment being interrogated, basically, I mean, towards the end, they were even saying, like, come on, we know you killed him. Like, fess
Like
up, let us
just
know.
yeah.
And Helga comes. Helga
Right.
comes in. Now, this is where we get introduced to Helga. And she comes in, and we find out her story. Her story,
Right.
how she,
Mabel got her to come.
yes, Mabel got her to
Mabel
come.
contacted her over the ham radio and got her to come because she thought that she would put some good like insight to
Yes,
investigation. So
right.
she shows up and
She
yeah.
shows up, and again, we find out her backstory about how she met Dudenoff. She was a locksmith and a business that she inherited from her father who passed away, and she was there changing the locks on his apartment. Obviously, apparently, she was changing the locks very frequently in his apartment because he used to lose his keys a lot. So she was
Right.
there a lot, and in talking, she would say how she really didn't go out much. She didn't really meet people like that.
Yeah. And
And
Dudenoff reminded her of her father.
yes,
And I think he took that as, I need to kind of bring her in here. And she didn't have, and they also mentioned about Oh Hell, and she said, oh yeah, I used to play with my father all the time. So he invited her to that. And they find out that she would love to live in Manhattan, but I don't know, she lives like, I don't know where she lives, but she says she's like, I'm
she's
only like
85 stops
80
away.
80 train stops away or something. In any direction, that's far.
Who knows? We don't even
So,
know.
yeah. So they decide, or he decides to bring her in as well. So they all were together in
All of
this.
them were a group at one point, including Helga. They were all together. They and during this, they start to talk more. And one day, Helga says she got a note from Dudenoff in her apartment door
Yeah.
that said that he was leaving, and that he feels bad doing it this way, was just leaving a letter, but he had to go. And so Helga left the building,
Yes.
and the rest of and then then she's talking about this in front of everyone, and then the rest of the group is saying, "You're not the only one that gotta know. We got one too, and we also
Right.
got something else." And they had
Because at this point, Helga's saying that the other Westies are the ones that killed Dudenoff. Because she
right, that
really
she didn't
loved
have
him
anything to do with.
like a father figure.
Yes,
And the fact that he left that note like that and everything, I think she felt that it was them, like because they killed him and that they were trying to throw off the trail and just said,
yes,
"Oh, he just left," but in reality, that they probably killed him, and
right,
so
right. And and again, they're thinking the same thing, right? The trio are
right,
thinking the same thing. But that's when they say, we got a letter too. You weren't the only one, and we got extra things to show you. So they all got letters apparently, and they had a film reel
mhm,
that they ended up playing. They showed, and then again another little flashback, and they show Dudenoff had sent letters to the rest of the Westies, the ones that we all know from the last few episodes,
right.
saying to meet me in the
Maybe,
basement
and don't
of,
tell Helga.
of the building and do not tell Helga. So Helga didn't know anything about this, only the rest of the Westies. They went
Right,
downstairs. Dudenoff is sitting in a chair with a camera facing him as if he's going to record himself. And he proceeds to tell them that he didn't say what it was, but he had a medical issue where the doctor told him he only had a few months to live. So he didn't want to prolong it. So he decided
and he didn't
to,
want it to just end like that,
yes, just
like just him die and then
and that's it. So he basically he wanted to take matters into his own hands, and he decided to end his life earlier.
right,
So he mentioned that he took a bunch of pills, so he was already almost at the end right there. He didn't want Helga to know because he did consider Helga to be like a daughter, so he thought that her finding out that Dudenoff died would hurt her a lot because her own father had died,
right.
and
And
he
he
didn't
didn't want
want
to
her
do
to
that to
go through
her.
that pain, right? He didn't want her to go through
Right,
that pain. So that's why he said not to tell Helga. So they didn't. And his plan was to record a video of himself to Helga, basically exonerating the Westies, saying
right,
that they didn't do this. This was all me. They're helping me because I asked them to. So that way they're cleared when this tape comes out.
right, right,
Essentially, they did put him in the incinerator.
right.
He he killed himself, right? He took the pill, so he killed
He asked
himself.
them, he
The
said, "Once
plan
I'm
was
dead,
like
I want you to put me in the
the
incinerator."
incinerator and just tell I've always wanted to go to Portugal. Just tell Helga I went to Portugal and I went to live in
And you
or
can
just
keep
tell people I went to live in Portugal and you can continue to cash the checks for me
and Social Security checks, yes.
and you can stay here living the way you are in the apartments.
Yes.
So that's how that plan started and that's how they got to continue to live
Right.
there. Now we have some connections to the dots that we
Right.
had before. So so that happened, right? And I wrote some things down, so I just want to make sure I get everything. So they come to so then once they find out the stories, the trio is thinking, okay, so no one here killed him or Saz, right? That's
Right.
that they came to kind of that conclusion. And no one here killed him. The Westies didn't do it
Right.
after that. So they kind of go back. All right, well, we're gonna go. And in the midst of this, they show Oliver talking and kind of because he's planning his wedding, right? He's getting ready to get
Right.
married to Loretta, and he's kind of talking, and he has these funny interactions with Zach Galifianakis about, and Zach is like, "Oh well,
About being romantic
so
and
if you're gonna get married, you can't just go to the courthouse. You have to do a really big thing. Marriage is important, and it sets the tone for the rest of your days, and you can't just do a courthouse thing. It's
right.
So it's a whole thing back and forth, back and forth. So and it's pretty funny. So there's a lot of that in between and
Yeah.
other little banter between like Eva Longoria and Eugene Levy and the rest of the cast and all that. So that's all thrown in there. Like always, it's like this show is very, very funny and comical, and you always get that comical banter
The
between
little side
everybody.
stories
Yeah, exactly.
of the
So
characters. Yeah.
so that's happening on in the sides and in between here, right? But the main story is this whole kind of Westy doing all stuff.
Yes.
Okay, they figure out, okay, these guys didn't do it. They leave. Charles and Oliver leave, go to the apartment. Mabel stays on the west side in her apartment where because remember, she's in Dudanoff's apartment now. So she stays there, and the Westies are back in their rooms. Helga comes back.
Yeah. So towards the end when they're trying to figure out basic
There's like
like
they had
the
to
next
start from scratch
plan.
now. Like now who do we think did it? And
Right.
to get to that conclusion, right? And Helga comes back, and Helga says, "Oh, she had got her pig. She was
It,
the one that had the pig in the beginning, like
yes.
from the beginning. And the pig that Howard had early on, that's Helga's pig. So she got the pig back,
Right.
and the plan was for her to move back to the Arconia. So I think she had went to get her
Yeah,
stuff
they want the Westies
back.
asked her,
Yes, to
like
come back.
basically now that you know that we didn't kill him,
Yeah,
we want you
I
to
want you to
come
come
back.
back.
You should
And
come
by the
back.
way, Helga was never Rudy's girlfriend.
Right.
That was all planned to make her sound like she was a crazy girlfriend and don't listen to her
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
They were friends. They were all friends. And it seemed like that even at the end of this episode that they were all friends, even from the
Yeah.
beginning. So Helga comes back and she tells Charles, Mabel, and Oliver, oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you something that Saz told me.
Right.
And they're like, wait a minute,
You knew
how do you
Sam?
know Saz? Right. So she starts to tell them that Saz was working on this show, and I is
Well,
it
they and oh, you should say that they connected through the ham radio.
right through the handwriting? That's how she knew of Saz, and Saz knew of her. That's how they became kind of friendly. Forgot the name. I don't think I wrote the name of the show correctly or the movie Project Ronkonkoma.
Project Ronkonkoma.
Okay, so apparently Saz was working on a movie called Project Ronkonkoma, and there was a stunt person on the movie that was
It was
kind of
like said like it was her protege.
right. And he was getting a little bit too kind of clingy and close and just a little bit in her business.
And yeah, like she didn't have a good feeling about this person.
Yeah, and no good vibes. And so that and she even told Helga, this guy's gonna be the death of me. Like she said that. So they're thinking, oh, okay, so now let's go and try and find out who the person was on that project. And they're looking on IMDb and they're searching and they see that it was Glenn
Ben
Stubbins.
Stubbins.
When she said that, I was like, oh, it's probably this
Yeah,
guy.
me
But
too.
he's not dead yet because he got shot,
Right.
but he wasn't dead. So I was like, oh, this is probably that guy. But then it could have been anyone in that bar. I mean, it
Oh
would
yeah,
be
of
kind of
course,
funny if it
but
was somebody in that bar that we already met.
it could
And
have
that,
been, but
but my
it
first thought was Glenn. So,
yeah.
but it was Glenn, and so he knew Saz.
Yep.
They were with him for a while, and
Hmm.
they knew nothing about this. So he knew Saz. I mean, I don't know if that means that he did something, and what his connection is to Dudenoff, I don't know.
Yeah, we still have to find that out.
So I don't know. I mean, I suppose that he could be on the suspect list, but only because of what Helga said.
Right.
But I'm like, how do they know? And if they do, and if he does know Dudenoff, then I'm sure they'll find a way to make a good connection. I'm just thinking, like, I can't even
Yeah.
think of
I
what it
mean,
could be.
the only thing I could think of is that they were both in some way
Oh,
involved
maybe he
in
was
film.
in the acting class.
Yeah, like they're both involved some kind
Possibly.
of film, right? He could have been part of Dudanov's acting class at one point.
Yeah.
Dudanov could have been a consultant on films that he's
Maybe
been
he was,
on.
maybe Dudanov was like a stunt person back in the day when he was younger.
That could be too. And maybe they were rivals. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I mean, I don't know. So now, I mean,
Or maybe Dudanov was a stunt coordinator because the
yeah,
fact that they would have been at the on the same level, I find it hard because he's Dudanov's so older, or
yeah,
see that he's older, but he could have been a stunt coordinator, and Glenn could have been on some movies and he didn't agree with things he did. And because he's a stunt person, who's to know all the damage he's done and could have got reconstructive
vision surgery.
surgery a bunch of times, and now he looked completely different. And if Dudanov saw him, probably wouldn't have known who he was.
That's true.
That's a little bit far fetched, but it still could be.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past this show because they come up with some quirky
Mm-hmm.
things here. So, I mean, that's totally a possibility. So
Yeah,
right now, I'm like not. I do not have the Westies on my suspicion list.
yeah, they're not. Yeah,
And if it doesn't end up being one of them, I'm gonna be like super surprised now because right now they're not on it.
they've made convincing arguments
I
and
still have, I still have. I mean, I mean, Glenn is on it now.
right, of course.
Glenn is on it now, and I still have Uma on it only because what they said before about the someone, the person that killed them is someone from the first season that was around for the first season. So I'm thinking that maybe,
And I also like, well, not saying that he's a suspect because I mean, I guess he could be if we find out some more info, but they said he was in the incinerator. They said whatever. We still don't know Dunov's really dead
I mean, that's true.
because I mean the Westies have lied before. Who's to say they're not lying about this? He could have recorded that just as a ruse to throw them off, to throw people off if certain things came to light.
Yeah.
Well, here, show you this, and this is what
Yeah.
happened.
I mean, it
Maybe
could,
there was something with Dudanov and Saz that they had issues, and Dudanov killed Saz,
yeah.
and then it's it could be something like that again. It's the same kind of thing with Glenn Saz and Glenn Stubbins, right? Because there's some people who worked on films. Dudanov could have been part of some films and things, and
I mean, these are all possibilities, guys, because to be honest, now I don't know where this is going.
yeah.
I feel like we're just throwing out
Yeah, this
what
episode threw me
ifs
off with the
and
suspects.
maybe this, maybe that.
It
Because
basically
you just never know,
exonerated
but
like six
I
people,
honestly don't know.
and
Yeah. I mean, are the brother sisters still out of it? Like, do we know? I mean, they said that someone that was working on the film may be trouble. It
right.
could be Glenn. That's what she was talking about. Although he wasn't really on,
Although he was never
but she could have been talking about a different film, not that film.
maybe
Project Ronkonkoma.
it could be.
I mean, I don't know.
Who's to know? We it's a lot going on now, people.
And I don't know. I think there's only maybe one or two episodes left
Probably.
of this season. So
Yeah,
they
so
have
it's
to
about to get
start.
wrapped up.
Yeah, they're gonna have to wrap it up soon. And then we'll find out.
Yeah.
The good thing that I actually do like about this series is that they do wrap up at the end of the series, like the last episode, they do wrap up and do reveal the killer. But then they also put in a cliffhanger for the next season.
Right. Right.
So they tell you who it is, so you don't have to wait a whole like year or whatever to find out. So they tell
Yep.
you who the killer is and who did what or whatever. but then at the end they find a way to throw in something to keep you coming back for the next season.
Right. And there
And
is a next season,
and there will be
so
another season, as we mentioned before. So I can only imagine that the end of this season is going to end the same, revealing the killer, and then
or they could go in
something
a
else.
different direction and they
Oh,
could
they could
just
go.
end it and keep it an even bigger cliffhanger and make us wait till next season.
Yeah,
Who's
yeah.
to say they don't do that?
They could do anything they want because they're
Yeah.
all right, guys. Really good episode today. They wrapped up a lot this episode,
Yeah.
and we still have more to come because there's
A
still
lot
some
more.
pieces to this puzzle that are
There's
not
still a lot of
fitting.
holes.
They're not fitting. So I think, like I said, I think one or two more episodes, and then that's it. Season 4. But we'll be back next week for the next episode to recap Only Murders in the Building. And as always, guys, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, The Horror Flick Chicks. Our YouTube channel is here. We have these videos up on our YouTube channel for you to like and subscribe and to love. Please click the subscribe button here and follow us, and that way you know when new videos get posted up. We also are on several audio platforms, so you can check us out there also if you like. And you can follow us also on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, social media. We'll comment on our videos and DM us and we'll respond to you. We love to talk to you. We want to hear your suggestions. Do you have any new members on the suspicion list? We want to know.
Let us
You
know.
agree with us? Do you have someone different?
Different. Yeah.
I'd love to know.
Be interested to know.
Exactly. And until next time, guys, hopefully next week we'll have Angie with us because we miss her. Angie. And until next time, it's Sonia and Sandra signing off for the Horror Flick Chicks podcast. Bye.
Bye.
That's the end.